Hey, we are live, Mark. We are live. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. It's a magnificent Monday, man. You know, so
And magnificent. I love the way you phrase that.
oh
You
yeah,
didn't just
absolutely. I look forward to Mondays. I remember the days when I didn't, but I actually look forward to Mondays. I know some people out there don't. I talked to them today too.
I can believe that. Tonight we're bringing back another guest night, but I just want to let everybody know that elevate your profits is about a lot of different things. It's more than just what we put in our pocket or our bank account from business, but everything from how we view the world, from mindset to bringing people like our guest that's coming in. He made a transition out of one industry into a totally
Yeah,
different industry.
big
And we
time.
like to hear those stories and hopefully that can influence people or help them get over that hump of making a decision. There's a lot of people out there today, would you agree, Mark, that are really looking, but they don't know where to look or how to even start that
Right.
process. And hopefully somebody's story like our guest is coming in will be able to say, maybe I could want to look in that area, right? So
Absolutely.
so we have had this person in before. Mark, do you have anything to say before we do
Oh,
our
I'm
interview?
I'm looking forward to having a conversation because Tom is not shy on words, and yesterday I heard a lot of words since I was out there taking care of business on the baseball field. But I like to hear people's their stories and how they transition from one vocation to another. I think this will be interesting to get into it with Tom and what's going on in his world, in the world of real estate. I'm sure he's got going to share some new and exciting things with us, and you know and tell us what's really going on out there.
Well, let's do this. Tom Gavin, we had Tom in. I always like to drop kudos to how we've all come together here through Grow Live Academy, Ken Walls. And we interviewed, we were just talking about before we came on about a year ago, 10, 11, 12 months ago, around this time. And we have grown ourselves with this process, but that's how we've come together. And tonight we're bringing back in Tom Gavin. Tom is made a transition from the radio industry. We'll let him
Yes.
talk a little bit about that to real estate. And so, without any further ado, we're going to bring in Tom. Are you ready, Tom? I had him talking
Here
to
we
me.
are.
Hey, Tom,
Yeah.
how you doing?
Seems like we never left, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Right.
That man is back.
Great to see both of you guys. I
Yeah.
will say this: we made the transition from the radio business. That was really I divested my in I owned was a partial owner in 4 stations and up and through 1988. And then when I left there, I had such a nucleus of talent. Frankly, we couldn't pay these kids anything at the small stations. They were barely getting by. We were barely getting by with our payroll. So what the deal that I made with them is I'll go out and convert some private entertainment gigs, and we'll give you some. And these are all young bucks like me at the time, very very enthusiastic, soaking up the business. I swear some of them would have worked for nothing, and give you some DJ gigs on the weekends when this is back when the DJ thing was just becoming popular in the 80s,
Right.
and the bands were starting to fall out of popularity for about 15 years. I think a lot of it's back now. And then when I left, let's see, that I really cruised with that stuff in the DC, Maryland area up until about 2015, and it did me well. It made a nice living. You work your tail off because you're doing everything. It's like you guys. You guys don't go home at 5 o'clock, and you probably don't come in. Some days that you don't come in at 9. You come in before that, and you work weekends or you're on the phone. And I was raised that way. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Tom, you got almost all that right. Um,
Yeah.
but I don't. This is my office from home. That's one of the
Right.
benefits some of the things I've learned
Right.
to do. So, but you're right on.
Well, since COVID, the real estate brokerage that we're with here in Maryland, Coldwell Banker, I don't know if Damaris and I have actually been in that. I don't think I've been in that building for a meeting since the lockdown. And these are some big, 6, 7, 8,000 square foot properties. Now, I'm not privy to what the lease is or what they're paying for rent on some of these buildings, and not just Coldwell Banker, but the Keller Williams Group. I mean, the big operators. But I'm just wondering is when these leases do start to expire,
Right.
what's going to happen to that real estate? Now, that's commercial.
Right.
Where's that real estate going?
Yeah.
And I think you're looking for a wave of change, much like the radio business was, where it was local operators or 2 and 3 station local owners, and then during the Reagan administration, deregulation was eased, and all of a sudden you could own a group of stations, and here come the big boys. And for about 20, 25 years, you had Clear Channel or Infinity Broadcasting. That became CBS. I mean, there's 4 or 5 big operators. And I think I'm not saying that that's going to change, but I think you're going to see a wave of change in many industries where what worked 25, 30, 40 years ago falls out of fashion. And I think gradually over time, things change and you sort of become a cycle, and not just this industry. For instance, let's talk about pharmaceuticals. On Saturday afternoon, I tried to get a prescription filled. I had to go to 3 different pharmacies because 2 of them, the pharmacies were closed at noon.
Wow.
On a Saturday. And the people there running the store said, well, we just, it's corporate CVS and Walgreens and Rite Aid. It's just that, we're just they're trying to cut costs. So things run in cycles.
Yeah.
Yeah, you brought up a great point about buildings and like where there were these humongous call centers, 2, 3, 4,
Right.
even 5 years ago. So that's a great point. And I live over here now. They're renaming it, but Technology Park. Some of these buildings, it'll be curious to see what they do with that real estate, where there were once call centers.
I don't think we'll ever get away from people telecommuting. And it may not be 5 days a week, but I know there's a number of big businesses in the greater DC area where they're bringing people back into the office, but they're not coming back into the office 5 days a week. They might come into the office three or 4 days a week. And I think that you don't need the brick and mortar places don't need as much. I mean, that's just overhead that can be corrected, can be changed when some of those commercial leases are up. I'm not a commercial guy, I'm residential, but you're seeing more and more empty spaces in some of these once thriving shopping centers. I mean, I know Sears has had their problems for probably 25, 30 years, but they just knocked down the Sears store here in Bel Air, Maryland, part of a mall. Well, there's another kettle of fish, malls. I don't know the last time I was in a mall. I'm certain I'm a guy, right? My shops are, pick up the phone, meaning the cell phone, and order something. But Damaris tends to go out with her mom and her daughter and shop at the mall. But I used to be in those places, frequently. And it just, times change, tastes change, styles change. And I tell people I work with, if you don't get on the bandwagon here and start accepting and embracing change, especially when it comes to skills in my industry, the real estate industry, we're going to be left behind. Mark and I were talking off camera, Tom, before we went live. Damaris and I hired a social media coach right about the last time the 3 of us got together. And she's got us doing videos 5 days a week on 4 of the major social media platforms to try to build an image and build a relationship. I talked to a new recruit this afternoon, and I asked her, what she was doing to generate new listings. And I said, how many cold calls do you make a day? And she said, I don't make calls. I just can't talk to people on the phone. And I'm thinking, how many transactions did you do last year? And I wasn't picking on her, but because I do some coaching for a fellow that got me in the business, not a lot, but I do some coaching when he's overbooked. And she said, I did 8. And I said, well, how did you do those 8 if you're not talking on the phone? God, give me the phone. I love talking on the phone because I look at it as an adventure.
Right.
I'm not here to try to make anybody feel uncomfortable. First of all, I'd love to know your history. Where did you grow up? Who did you root for? What are the last 3 books you read? And the way I met Tamara, she was a real estate agent driving a flipping Land Rover and hired us for her daughter's sweet 16 or sweet 15 quinceanera. And I said, well, I don't want to talk about the party very long. I want to find out what you eat for breakfast in the morning. Out of bed. And the 3 of us know people like that are self-starters, that are sponges for knowledge, always constantly trying to improve. And I mean, I read Tom's stuff all the time. I watch Mark's videos. So much of the stuff is free in today's world. And what the problem with a lot here, I get philosophical on you guys again, just like last time. I think the problem is too many people just choose not to take advantage of it. And that comes down to hard work. That's all it is. Turn Netflix off, turn the TV off, and spend an hour every evening, just an hour, trying to refine your skills, learn something, read 10 pages in a book. Because that's the way I was raised.
Right.
Tom, you're saying some things that, when we look, I'm a personal development coach as well. And Albert Ian Gray said,
you're the development coach. I'm the realtor. I want to make that very clear. That when I tried to help, I do maybe 4 or 5 calls a month for a fellow out of Dallas named Hoss Pratt. That's become a good friend of mine, was a mentor, helped me get started in this business. But I always am very careful to say I'm not a coach. I don't think I have quite the talent and the skills. Tom Ginn's a coach. Mark Gassert, I see him as a coach on the baseball field. I mean, if I ever wanted to find out what the infield fly rule was, I talked to Mark. But I'm a hardworking guy that loves to help people.
We can talk about it in this case book here in the National Federation of High School.
Now, I also want to talk about your feelings of later in the program about the DH rule being now allowed in both leagues. But that's
boy,
we're digressing here in a big way.
We are. I'm sorry, it's your show and I'm the guest.
Yeah.
But I just want to make you mentioned a lot of things is growth. Reading and studying and applying and making changes. There's three things we're guaranteed.
Absolutely.
Taxes, change, and death.
Correct.
Those are the 3 things. And, the one thing we do have is control over change, how we deal with it,
Correct. Yep.
So, unfortunately, I've been in business with myself since '83 and many different businesses. And, the challenge, you find that most business people don't grow. They say this is the way we did it in the past. This is the way we'll continue to do it. And they don't make changes. They don't adapt. And the adaptation starts with what goes on between the years, the thinking process. And it's unfortunate that, especially when we're dealing with what we've got going on in the last couple of years is a good example of what might be coming with the big inflation word, right? How is that going to affect us? Are you prepared mentally? I mean, to deal with it? Because if you're not, you're going to, I call it crash and burn.
Right.
You'll be stuck trying to figure out what ran over you.
I look at inflation, and guys, correct me if you think I'm wrong. I look at inflation almost like creeping obesity. That if we're not careful, the 3 of us I gained about 10 pounds during COVID, just because I was around the house more. My significant other is just a fabulous. There's always food in the house. I lived alone for 10 years, and I had cold pizza almost every night. I mean, but now there's food on the table almost every night of the week. And so I happen to gain 10 pounds over COVID. But I think I look at that as if people are not careful about inflation or have a money plan or a money manager. And it won't happen overnight, but you'll wake up one day and say, geez, where's my real wealth gone? And it's the same with housing. Right now, houses are still appreciating like crazy. Are they as appreciating as high a level as they were a year ago? No, but they're awfully close. The real estate industry is still doing very well. Houses are gaining value. Interest rates, I mean, by the grace of God, they're below 4 again. They're at 3.76. So yesterday morning when I checked them. And I think we got to roll with the punches here and just ride this wave out. We don't know what's happening over in Eastern Europe. I mean, it's almost like something seems to change every hour. So I try to tell my friends and my customers, let's just control what we can control right now. In the real estate market, we still have more buyers in the marketplace than we have homes to sell. The normal market for real estate is a 6-month supply of inventory. And right now we're just under 2. And a friend of mine in Philadelphia says, it's not that we don't have enough houses to sell. The problem is the houses that are coming online, people are listing their houses, but they're selling in a day. And that's the problem is we can't get the inventory into the marketplace fast enough for it to go on the market and linger for a few days to try to get the housing supply up. And I know I'm all over the road here, but you Tom, you brought some excellent points. You've got to change, and you've got to keep your antenna up. And that's why I encourage people to always be learning something, whether it's out of a book or on a program like this. There's a college 4 miles down the road from me.
ABL, always be learning.
Right. Yeah. And I'm thinking, when every night I drive by this, I should be taking a night course here just for the heck of doing it. Because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know what's going to happen.
Right.
You know, and you're talking about learning, you know, the average person after they graduate from high school only reads 1 book.
Isn't that is just so embarrassing in this country?
Yeah, but when you look at the most success, people exceeding, but you know, people get caught up in the norm,
right,
and the average. I don't believe any of us here want to be normal and average. I know I don't.
Not on this channel, not tonight.
But here's the thing: when we look at success, and you know, you had success in the radio business. You're transferring those skills.
Yeah.
Some of you have to adapt and mold and move into that. Those disciplines are transferable. But when you look at success, there's a number of things that people don't even look at, and not unless they ask somebody who's exceeding at higher levels. Number one, the average millionaire in business reads 4 books a month. Mm-hmm. But keep in mind, there's not a lot of millionaires in this country.
Right.
It's only 3.5%
right.
of the American people are millionaires. So if they're reading 4 books a month, wouldn't that be a clue? Maybe I should read at least 1. Mm-hmm. Because that's a stepping stone to that. So it's really important to start looking at what are the success thoughts, what do the people do?
Right.
You know, you made a transition from an industry that changed, and what caused you to go into real estate? What was it about real estate?
When I you talk about people that influence others. I had a gentleman, one of my advertisers, when I was in radio in Baltimore, and he wanted to buy a small station about 45 minutes outside of the city limits of Baltimore, and it was an AM daytimer. In other words, it came on when the sun came up in the morning, and it would sign off in the afternoon. Every month we were signing off at a different time. We love Eastern Daylight Time because right now we would be able to stay on till 7:30, 8 o'clock. But yet in November we were signing off at 4:15. What did that do for afternoon drive? And then some stations in the darker months of the year, some stations couldn't sign on until 7 a.m. again because of the sunrise. Right. Some of us had what was called pre-sunrise authorization. We could sign on at a lower power at 6 a.m. But I'm getting off the point here. When he took me under, I was a kid, probably 22, 23 years old, took me under his wing. I simply did what he told me. I learned under him. He was the grandson of Maryland's largest furrier. And he taught me not only I knew some of the radio industry from working at other stations, but he taught me the retail business and how to talk to a retailer in terms of converting a retailer to showing them how advertising on not just our station, but on radio in general at the time could be very beneficial. Now, this is in the day, this is before the internet. This is before Sirius XM. And I'm not saying local radio still has a lot of power if you run it right. But I was blessed to be, by dumb luck, meet certain people that took a liking to me. Maybe it was my energy, or maybe it was my willingness to learn. I'd work 24/7 if I was capable of doing it. I just really soaked up the industry. And then he allowed me opportunity to grow with him. And that's getting back to what you just said about why people don't read. I mean, I have a Kindle. I have a Kindle on my phone, probably like the three of us. I must have 100 books on that thing. And I'm not watching television at night. I'm reading off the phone in the dark. It's because it has become a habit, and a habit that benefits me in terms of industry knowledge. And now the Kindle books aren't free, but they're awfully close to free. Pick up the darn thing and learn something.
Absolutely.
Well
said.
Or you got audio
a little
books
bit
too.
all over the road there, which is
no, that's cool.
Part of my charm. Depends who you talk to.
You know what, you brought up a great point. If you can't do that, I know audiobooks might cost a little bit more, but you know, if you're fixing up something in your garage, or you know, doing a project, that's what I do.
Right.
You know, and that's, you can't read, you know, if you're driving or whatever, but you know, I'll listen to that while I'm going down the road, better than listening to the radio.
You know, it's funny you say that, because with audiobooks, I find when my day starts awfully early, as I've told you fellas before. If I'm not out running early in the morning, I can't run every single day, but I try to run every other day. But I still get up about the same time. Damaris gets up, and she's very into her martial arts, and she's a second-degree black belt.
Black belt?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah. And, you know, it's funny because she had some trauma in her life, and went through a divorce. And I think because of that, she got into the martial arts as a diversion. And I've discovered since there are a lot of people that do that are making a lifestyle change, like Mark referenced a few minutes ago, a lifestyle change, and to move on to something else. And all of a sudden she's in a nucleus of 20, 30 people, not all but there because of her situation, but some of them are, or some of them are trying to make a change or level up to the next chapter of their lives. So this is an early household around here. And listen, once you get used to it, whether you get up at 3:45 or 5:45, it really doesn't make any difference. You just go to bed a little bit earlier. But our lives are better off for it. I can't tell you the last time I sat down to watch a network television program in its entirety. Well, I have a soft spot for Curb Your Enthusiasm. I have to admit it. I'm sorry. Larry David is just, I know now why Seinfeld was so darn successful, though I was never home. I was working nights when it was on.
Right.
But there's select moments that I'll spend in front of a television, but I much would rather be educating myself or out doing somebody some good in the general community.
Absolutely. I know Mark's got some questions for you as well. I haven't had a TV hooked up in my home for 6.5 years, almost 7.
If I didn't have 2 women living here, Damaris and her daughter living here, I wouldn't have cable. I'd have to have internet.
Yeah, sure.
I would not be, I don't watch it, especially with all that's been going on in the last 3-4 months in the world. And some people fault me for that. I don't watch the news. I listen to Fox Business and CNBC for business, and I read the Wall Street Journal for business, but I don't want to get caught up in that web of negativity.
You got it.
But I did just subscribe to the is it the National or the Athletic, that sports website.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the Athletic, and I do get a lot of joy out of that.
Yeah, you mentioned some disciplines there. So you are you a runner? It sounds like. Huh?
Yeah. I run 3, sometimes 4 days a week. In fact, I'm relatively proud about. I mean, I'm proud of how many times I get out there in the wintertime. My threshold for cold temperatures is about 27. 27 and below is very uncomfortable. Even once I get out there, it's just my joint. I mean, I'm 66, right. I just turned 67, and my joints are at 27. They just don't move as fast as they used to. But 20, and like from here on in, I'll be golden 3-4 days a week, 3 to 5 miles, depending on how my body's responding to the day. But I get so much energy. I mean, this is what 6:30 at night, and we've been going since 10 after 4 this morning, and I'm ready to go till 10 or 11. Physical fitness has really benefited my life.
Yep.
Yeah. Had you competed in any races like the
No.
Boston Marathon? Or
Of course, I'm from there, as you know, from up that way. I just that's a year's worth of training to get, and not everybody, as I've looked into it, not everybody is accepting, because they have so many people trying to get into the race, and they haven't had it the last 2 years because I mean a lot of things have been put on pause. I do a couple of charity races around here in this county, in Harford County, Maryland. But I'm a guy that likes to be left alone, to do it on my own, on my terms, my rules, my pace.
I hear you.
Because the overall benefit is I still have the benefit of the health, the health benefit.
Right.
It's amazing, how important that is, and how biggest majority of, and I can put me in that category from time to time, is not being as diligent in the exercise things. Good thing I got a wife that at least makes me exercise at least 3 or 4 days a week. So, but it's such an important discipline, like anything else.
My brother died at 29, and I had an uncle. In fact, I just posted something on one of my social media posts about him this morning, and he died at 52. And he was a fitness nut. He played hockey with his kids. We all grew up in New England, and he played hockey with his kids. And my mother used to say, he had 5 children, and my mother used to say, if you kids don't kill your uncle, the Ford business will. And he literally had a major heart attack about 52. And you never, when you get a call like that, and all of us probably have at one time or another, I've gotten several. But when you get a call like that, when your mother calls your radio station and she's on your private line at 3 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon, it's not going to be a good conversation. And she said when my uncle was taken very seriously ill, and 2 days later, he's in a casket. I said to myself, this ain't going to get me. People in the 50s and 60s, and not just in New England, but the majority of them, especially the guys that were in the war, all smoked, all ate the wrong things, probably didn't do a lot of exercising after they got out of the service. And then it was in generations later that we discovered why people are dying so fast. My younger brother died of leukemia, and that was just by bad luck of the Irish. And so I said, I can control my health to a certain degree by exercising on a regular basis. And, I'm about 160 pounds, and I have a 33-inch waist, and I have a young lady in my life that thinks I walk on water that's 20 years younger. Who wouldn't want to get out of bed in the morning?
Boy, that was a great sales job there.
Well, I don't know. And I know this happens every time the three of us get together. But I get out of bed in the morning expecting to win and expecting to benefit somebody else that I run into in my life that day.
Cool.
How can I help them?
Yeah. When did you make the transition to real estate? I
went from 88 I got into this small chain of stations, 5 of them, without a nickel's worth of it was all equity, sweat equity. And the gentleman that hired me just did me a huge favor. So I was able to build some wealth those 5 years with those radio stations. And I learned a lot, taught me a lot about retail, taught me a lot about working one-on-one with local merchants, because prior to that, I've been working in major markets where so much of the ad dollars were driven through advertising agencies. It was all about ratings. If you had the ratings, the advertising agencies would give you the appointments. You could go in and talk about the benefits of the station. But if you didn't have the listeners, which is what they're looking for, they have big customers. They want to drive those listeners into their customers' stores and places of business. But once you got grassroots, nose to nose with the customer, the guy down the street that's got the car on the lift and is trying to make the mortgage payment to the bank, he's answering to the bank. That was one transition, and I learned a ton of stuff over 5 years. And then when I got out of that business, I had developed a little bit of a following and a customer base with catering halls and country clubs and banquet facilities. I just tried to transfer lateral, essentially, but only on a more intense, consistent program. And it worked. But it worked my tail off. The biggest problem in that industry, like so many, is labor. And I was constantly recruiting, training, supervising. And then, if somebody's not happy, I got to take the call and fix the problem. And I did that up until and it was I know I'm being a little negative here, and I really don't. It's not part of my nature. But I did that on a consistent basis till about 2015, when I met Damaris. And Damaris said, listen, if you and I are going to try to make a relationship out of this, you're going to have to get out of this crazy entertainment stuff, because your phone rings at 10 o'clock at night, and there's a problem with the band or a problem with the disc jockey, and you got to run out the door and fix it. And the money was good, but it wasn't that good. So then she came to me and said, listen, I'm a buyer's agent for a group out of Maryland called Long and Foster. I do some listings. I do a lot of buyers. I need somebody that can be my listing agent, that's not afraid to make cold calls and not afraid to ask the tough questions. That my life's not going to be ruined if several people in a row hang up on me. Just make the calls, tell the story. Right? Does that sound familiar? Tell the story. Somebody hangs up on me, guys. I call them right back. And a number of conversations. The conversation continues.
Right.
I love talking on the phone, and because it's a conversation. Many times it's a conversation. I don't necessarily call up and lead off with real estate. Anyway, to answer your question, Mark, it got first year we did okay. Second year we doubled the business. The third year we tripled the business. And you have to do it every day. It's not going to come. During the pandemic, real estate did so well during the pandemic because I think all these people had nothing else to do but go out and look at houses.
Yes.
We could finally get out of our houses.
Well, it was an excuse to get out and about.
Right. Yeah. and they, now there were a lot of rules for real estate. You had to have face masks and you had to have gloves, and some houses, they made you wear booties, and you had to sanitize. A lot of rules. I don't want to get political here now, but I think everyone meant well, and we did the best we could back then. But looking now, I'm just wondering, really, was all that really necessary? But at the time, we didn't know.
Right.
Now, I don't have kids, so I'm not, in the middle of do we mask or not, so I'm not involved. I might have a different point of view if I did.
Man.
So, yeah, Mark is grinning ear to ear. I know you got something to say, Mark. You got a question.
Well, no, I actually, there's two questions I'm going to ask you here.
Right.
How do you fix a bad day? Everybody has them. How do you fix it?
I have the answer. About a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, I got, I'm friendly with a bunch of agents out in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, just out of Nashville.
Oh my goodness. I know where that's at.
Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And I'm in a mastermind program with a whole bunch of them. And there's this one young buck named Josh, also a Boston Red Sox fan. I think that's how he and I saw it.
So there's the connection. Right? Yeah, there's the connection.
And he said to me one day, or I heard him on a podcast group call. He says he writes his goals down every afternoon at 2:30. And he says, in lieu of having another cup of coffee or eating a donut or something. Because I write my goals down within an hour when I get up every morning. He says, I wait to write my goals down until about 2:30 in the afternoon. And that energy that I get from writing my goals down propels me to a higher level for the rest of the day. And so I started doing it. In fact, some days I write them down twice because it reminds me of things I have to do or projects I want to aim for or accomplishments I want to aim for. I mean, I have a lot of goals. You guys have a lot of goals. We all have accomplished a great deal in life, but I want it all. In fact, a friend of mine unfortunately died very suddenly this weekend. He was significantly older, but he and I used to talk about, the afterlife, what's next for us. And one day I said to him, Dominic, I hope they send me back because I'd like to come back, start all over again and fix what I did wrong the first time. And again, depending who you talk to about those views, you might leave the room with fewer friends than you came in on. But my goals and accomplishments and aspirations and just get out of the way. I've got stuff to do. I've got goals to meet.
Cool.
Can I interject something here? I know, Mark, you got something else, but you said something very important, and people don't realize this. Is that you said that young guy in Tennessee writes his goals out.
Yeah, very impressive.
The research shows it, and people that doubt it are the ones struggle.
Right.
Is that the top 10% to write their goals out have 20 times greater net worth than the other 90% combined.
Right.
So another clue: write your goals tied to your why. So it's not just to make money.
I've got a freaking journal, and there's a page every day with my goals on it. Now, there's other stuff on there too. Now, where were you 40 years ago? We should have been doing this 40 years ago.
And right there is another testimonial that the people that are accelerating above the norm or the average do those things. Clue: why am I not? Right. And I remember one thing that in our mastermind group of Grow Live, Grant Cardone mentioned this: how many times do you write your goals down a day? And there was some dialogue. He says you write them down 3 times minimum. So Tom, what would be the first time you'd write your goal down?
Well, I do it usually between in the first hour that I'm either up or if I exercise within an hour of when I return. And I enjoy a cup of coffee. The house is quiet. The phones aren't ringing, and I have total concentration on my goals.
When would be the second time you write your goals during the day?
Well, again, in that 2:30, 3 o'clock hour, when I used to either reach for a candy bar or more caffeine. Now, because I drink so much water, I don't think I need as much of that stuff. The second time is mid to late afternoon, because it refocuses. People think this is crazy if they don't. And may he rest in peace. My dad was one of them. He's that's just a bunch of nonsense. My dad did pretty well without this stuff. And I said to him one day, I said, imagine what you could be if you just would buy into some of this stuff, because he was pretty good as a food broker and as a business leader. But the second time is mid to late afternoon, because in energy, I don't have that 3 o'clock lull that I used to have. And the third time is by the time I get to 8:30, 9 o'clock, fellas, I'm lucky if I can just keep my eyes open to get to the bedroom. I am done and spent with my day.
I'll share what Grant Cardone said, and I sort of picked this up.
All ears.
He says you write it the first thing, you write it out in relationship to your why, the purpose, the outcome you seek.
Right.
It's not always about what you're going to do today, but what's the outcome? Why am I getting up today? What do I need to do to move me in that direction? So it's a little 1 or 2 sentence statement. He writes it out.
Right.
The second time you write it is the first time you get rejected.
Really?
You have a setback.
Okay.
you go and you write that same statement down, and guess what? It gets you re-energized because you're tied to a bigger reason than the rejection.
Right.
Oh, okay. You're not focusing on the negative. You're not focused on the outcome that you expected to happen. It didn't happen.
Right.
That's when you write it. And if you get a second or third one a day, you're writing down your goals at least 3 times, right?
Mhm.
But you may have 2 to 3 setbacks during the day.
Right.
A closing got canceled. Oh God, he needs more
If you're working
documents.
with a home inspection list, you might have 15.
Exactly. So what do you
Right.
do? Are you going to beat yourself up? And no, you go back to your why and you write that down, and then you end your day with the same thing.
Right.
And you know, that's what I've learned. But you know, Grant made that little point there. When you get a disappointment, that gets you refocused on your why.
Right.
Okay. Now I know why I got to pick that phone up again, or I need to do X, Y, and Z to get down the
Right.
road to my
Right.
goal. So that
Right.
was just a fine tune what I've been taught, the writing.
That's something that certainly I'm going to start doing. My goals, though, I probably have about 35, 40 things that I'll write on my goal sheet because I love. There's a book I'm reading called the 4 Disciplines of Execution, and they talk about setting 1 or 2 wildly important goals, because if you have more than that, it's unproductive, because the whirlwind that's around us all day, the phones ringing and people walking in and the got a minute meetings. If you have 1 or 2 primary focus goal plans, and then the lead indicator is where I want to go, but the lag indicator is how I'm going to get there. So I have like 5 to 10 for each. And it's just a plan of the day every single day. Do I hit it every single day? Heck no. Especially if the phone rings and if you have a listing appointment being requested, or because of this new program that we're in, Damaris and I are in, because we do so much on social media, people are reaching out to us. Our problem is having to try to stay focused and organized to implement all the success that's trying to reach us. But my goal situation gets me started in the morning, and then mid-afternoon gives me that second turbo boost of power to get me through into the evening. But I'm going to start doing that because I could have used it on a particular real estate transaction, fellas, in the last 30 days. That did not go well until the very, very end. Even that when I got personally involved, Damaris got personally involved and tried to help the seller, because he was just getting hammered with. He bought a lemon of a house, and it kept costing him more and more money. All we wanted to do is get this thing remodeled and sold, and for him to move on.
Gotcha.
Art, what do you got? I know you got.
Well, no, I just, what separates? Here's a good question.
Good.
A good real estate person, realtor, from a great one. What separates the two?
Preparation, study, enthusiasm, and a drive to understand that no is not the answer. No is unacceptable. Just go. Working for the customer in the customer's best interest. Not keeping score. In other words, don't have the money from the transaction already spent. I can't even tell you what I make on these events. Damaris handles the money. And I said, because I don't want, I wouldn't even if I were, I would throw it in the drawer. I don't even want, I'm worried about the next customer. My drive is to help people.
Right.
The 3 biggest days of their lives. And I may not be answering the question, Mark, but just get me back on track after.
Okay.
The 3 biggest days in people's lives, my philosophy is the day you buy your dream house, the day you marry your soulmate, and the day you give birth. I think those are the 3 biggest. Right. There are other big days, but the day you buy the dream house, the house that when you drove down the street looking for homes, you said, that's the one. I don't know whether we can afford it. I don't know if it's for sale, but that's my dream house. That's the biggest day in people's lives. Other biggest day is the day you marry your soulmate. And then the third biggest day, I think, is the day you give birth. Now, when I was in the music business and then I did some real estate when I was just getting going in this, I could tell people, I said, I can help you with 2 of those. I can help you buy a house, and I can send you a DJ to help you play the music when you get married. But I ain't coming to the delivery room. That's what I have to. That's one thing I can't help you with.
Love it.
But I think it's the commitment, Mark, to answer your question, the commitment, the know-how, the experience, the being able to look adversity in the face and not back down.
Right.
You know, I mean, and being able to say and to smell out a bad deal when it is a bad deal, and to have the chutzpah to walk away.
And I'll add to that. When you don't do so well, your body language, you're talking about how you handle it, like when you're engaged with people, because people can pick up on that. Yeah. And that to me is the big thing. I'm not saying I like to see people, I hate the word fail, but they have a hiccup, how do they handle it now? And I'm not just saying in words, just watch how they handle, if their boss is jumping down their throat, right, or a coworker, or how do you handle it?
Right. It's interesting you said that, because when I was first made the transition from the entertainment business, I'd been out of the radio business for quite a while, but I did 15, 16 years in the entertainment business. And there are parallels with all 3 of these industries.
Right.
I had a number of situations where I made mental mistakes, preparation mistakes. I read people wrong.
Sure.
And I was able to save a few of them. A few of them weren't worth saving. I was better off without them, but there were still a couple of real Lulu of mistakes that I made that I could have had a bigger listing or a bigger customer that could have led to more listing activity. But I learned from those. And when I talk to people that are getting into the industry, I'll say, listen, when you get your license, you call me, because I'm going to tell you, help you avoid making the top 10 biggest mistakes that I did. But sometimes you just have to go out there and get your teeth kicked in, because you can read some of the stuff you can read all day in a book or listen to a talk show online. Right. But until you actually are out there, it's like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Right.
Right. And until you actually get kicked in the teeth, I learned real fast of what to do and what not to do. Even with all this training, there's still mistakes that I've made.
Sure. That's a great point.
I wouldn't trade it for the world. I would go back and do it. That's why I want to, in the afterlife, I'm going to say, can I make a U-turn, go back and do it all over again? Because I want, and I'm saying, I don't know what's ahead. I mean, I know my mother looks out for me. I pray to her every night, but I would like to, I'm all about helping people. In the second half of, I'm very optimistic. The second half of my life, I just turned 67, and I am enthused about coming on here, talking to you guys. I just hope one thing that I say to somebody that's watching the program, it has some type of positive impact on them. And I'll if they don't want to call me on the phone, I'll spend as much time as necessary to try to help them down the road.
Right. You know what? You just mentioned something I think is important, because we are culturally programmed to retire. What does that mean?
Go sit in the car.
You know what I'm saying?
You're not
retiring. I don't want to retire.
It's at home plate on Friday night.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm the senior of this group. I'm the senior guy here. So I have no desire to hang out the coffee shop with a cup of coffee and talk about the same thing I talked about yesterday with a bunch of guys or whatever, or play golf 3 days a week.
Not me.
Those are all great things, but I'd rather get up in the morning, have a purpose in life.
Yes.
To make a difference for other people. And in turn, if you serve people like you were talking about, the rewards come back, not always in money.
Right.
So I'm in a place in my life, people say, well, are you retired? And I look at them, I'm like, no, I just created a life I don't want to retire from. I'm going to continue doing what I do till my last breath.
Right. I tell people, guys like you and me are just getting started. The 3 of us, just getting started. I mean, I'm watching Mark's videos from a ball field on Saturday morning. I see you on both you guys on this program on Tuesdays or Monday nights. I see you all over the internet with your brand throughout the week. My father, when he retired from the food business, he was a food broker. He said to me, "I'm not going to retire because I believe if I retire, you die faster." And I think there's some merit to that. But what he did is he bought an airplane. And it's another long story. My mother wouldn't let him buy an airplane. And within 6 months of, unfortunately, her passing, he had an airplane. And those guys didn't sit in the car. He'd go over to this little tiny airport in Turners Falls, Massachusetts. And
oh my goodness.
And it was like a hangar that could house, he's got one airstrip and a hangar that could house 3 aircraft and, 2 and 4 seater aircraft. These guys would sit there, drink coffee, and unfortunately smoke cigarettes all day long,
right,
and talk about aviation. Now, aside from the cigarettes, I think that's a pretty healthy and productive way to keep your mind going, to keep your goals going, and to keep an active lifestyle.
Sure.
And Robert just put up.
Yeah, he goes, I ran with the suggestion. If you need the vacation so badly, don't go back when it's over. Why not create a life you need no vacation from? And so I did, So
true. Take advantage of it now while we're here.
Yeah. You see so many people that they striving to punch the last time clock and go to retire, and 6 months later they're gone.
I have a dear friend of mine that he's a caterer, and he used me and my team of DJs for about 18 years. And his wife was in catering, and she died suddenly about 4 or 5 years. I say 4 or 5 years. It might be longer than that. And I just unfortunately got the call, and I heard that Mrs. So-and-so was very sick, and it hit you like, again, it's a moment you will never forget where you were. But unfortunately, not her, but he was counting the days until his retirement up until she passed away suddenly. And since that time, he's like has a higher power. Something touched him. And now he's doing other things with his life. He's not going to retire. I mean, he was about 10 years younger than I am. He's not going to retire. And he's got his wife had to pass for him to see the light about his higher purpose in life.
Right.
And, it was sad, but I just to say, Lou, why are you telling me you got 540 days until you retire? I mean, I would hate to be living that way every day. I didn't say anything. That was his business. But but since she's unfortunately, we've lost Miss Kitty, I don't hear him talk that way anymore.
Yeah, plant the seed in everybody's mind, 17,375. Do you have any idea what that number represents?
That's the number of days in one's life?
If you look at 75.
Okay. Well,
take your age.
I'm telling you that right now.
What's that?
The 3 of us are going to shatter that record right now.
Yeah, here Randy's got a good one here. He says we must. It's what he preaches all the time on his his wins podcast. He said we must do what we love and love what we do, and if you don't, either figure it out a way to change things or find something you can learn to love. I mean, and he's always talking about that in his building wins.
I can't even fathom having to hating to go to work in the morning. That thought doesn't exist in me. I have to make it a game or have to make it a contest or something in my mind, right? How many calls? I made 13 calls yesterday and I had 4 conversations. Let's see if we can do 15 and get 6 conversations today. Compete with yourself. Say what you want about Rick Pitino, the basketball coach, and the holes in his character that's had been revealed over the recent years. But I read
now we're going into Rick Pitino. Go ahead. No,
but I read some of his early books when he was an author.
Sure.
And he was very, very competitive, still is, but very competitive in terms of how he ran his life and he ran the lives of his players. Always looking out for those boys, always setting mini goals, many expectations. He was not an easy guy to play for, but and I was maybe in my early 20s or mid 20s the first time I connected with one of his books, and that helped me get through some of the struggling times of my 20s and 30s when I really didn't know what do I want to do next? Do I want to do this for the rest of my life? And then in my mind, I just would start setting mini goals and almost competing with myself. And it made things better, gave me a fresh outlook.
I couldn't agree with you more. Compete with self, not others.
Right.
Stop worrying what the other guy is doing.
Right.
Like,
quit comparing.
Right.
The analogy of, back in the days of the Civil War, none of us were there, but I'm talking about everybody like Robert E. Lee. And then along came U.S. Grant. And
Right.
I read a book about him, and that's why I point this out. And he said, he's immortal just like me, and I will pursue him. And he did.
Mm-hmm.
And, everybody talks about how great a General Lee was, and he was. He went
Right.
to West Point, no demerits. That's great.
Right.
And then here comes Grant, this Midwestern plodding, just methodical, does his thing. And, look what he did. And he wound up becoming a president. He wasn't the greatest president. I think he was a far superior general.
Right. Could be.
What he brought to the table. But
right.
He's a pretty interesting read, when you read about Grant and his character. I mean, it's amazing about the guy. He had integrity. He really did. It's just
there was so much information available to us and to young people today.
Yeah, it's incredible.
The majority of it is free. Yeah. It is there. Don't whine and complain and gripe to me that it costs too much. I mean, and when was the last time? Now, I have to say I'm guilty. I can't tell you the last time I was at a library, but the library is on my phone. Yeah. And the knowledge is in there. And you don't have to do this all day long. It's like Jim Rohn says, the same 3 or 4 disciplines practiced daily are going to get you down the road faster and more successful over a few years' time.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm paraphrasing what the guy just said about him. But.
I'll share something that a good friend of mine passed here last November. We ran an organization called EIB here in the Milwaukee area, called Excellent Business Roundtable, and we'd have talks, and we used to meet phically at the Pet Center.
Did they steal that from Rush Limbaugh? EIB, Excellence in Broadcasting.
I'm glad you said that, Mark.
You know what? The thing is, EIB is not trademarked.
No. Really?
It's not trademarked.
No, that's wild.
So so we already know that. So, but anyway, we would meet and where was I going? You threw me off, threw me a curveball.
Well, your friend passed, and you used to you'd meet out of one night a week or one day a week.
Yeah, I
think at the Pet Center.
Yeah.
And I forgot what I was going to tie that to. So we'll just leave it at that.
Sorry,
I'll come back in a minute.
I threw a change up, instead of a fastball.
Speaking of that, one of the greatest tools I think that I have at my fingertips, I don't know what your schedule is, fellas, is a mastermind several times a week with different groups of people. And I show up, and you know me, I have my journals, and I write everything down, and I take notes, and I can go back and look at my material later. And if you just pay attention, first of all, show up for these masterminds, and then take notes and offer something, ask a question, help get the dialogue started. But most of all, take notes, and you walk away a better person than you were at the start of the hour. And again, all this stuff is free. So don't give me this nonsense about it costs too much or I don't have enough opportunity. And I don't want to get political here because I was very fortunate. I was raised in a family I wanted for nothing. Well, I had to hold my own later in life. But geez, there's so much that's available to us for free.
Right.
I just don't think many people take advantage of it.
You got that right. I know where I was going to go.
Good.
You talked about your goals and writing those things, the 3 things that move you forward.
Every morning.
I'm relating back to Chuck Harris, the gentleman that passed away.
Right.
And we had a workshop one time, and it's a mastermind, basically, of other business people, all different types of businesses. And we always had a theme or a topic that we're going to discuss, and then we have dialogue in and around it. How would you deal with it? What would yours? Have you encountered those things? And learn from other people that are in business, right?
Sure.
And we had one workshop, is the millionaire's to-do list. Do you have any idea? The billionaire, excuse me, the billionaire's to-do list. You know what it looks like?
No clue. It's a short list. Okay, short list.
What's the one thing I do today that moved me in the direction of my vision? One thing. Now, could change every day, but it's always in relationship to the outcome you see. One thing, and that's all they focus in, is that one thing.
Right.
They kill it. The next day, they got something else to do, and they don't worry about the checklist of 10 things. And at the end of the day, sometimes you feel I only got 2 done.
Right.
You set yourself up for negative feelings, negative results.
Sure.
So, and I forgot where he got that context from, but it was some very significant people that they found out, sort of like Napoleon Hill. What's the common thread? The billionaires only focus on one thing a day.
Amazing. Simple. Simply amazing.
Yeah. So
that is, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, well, I tell you what.
Glad the baseball lockout is over, like I am.
Yes, it's about time.
I don't have a lot of distractions in my life, but baseball is one of them because I grew up with the Boston Red Sox.
Some of the Braves players were delivering pizzas and stuff.
Were they really?
Yeah, they were doing that.
Good for them. I'm sort of disconnected from that, probably like you guys are. I mean, stuff that was hobbies or part of your childhood, like mine. Right. Time to follow all this. In fact, I don't get my sports in front of a television. The darn XM radio on the phone is how I stay connected with the world. But I'm just so glad. I couldn't imagine not having something to follow from the end of the NCAA tournament up until the start of football spring training or football pre-training camp in July.
Right.
And I know you have a passion for baseball, Mark. So.
Just a little.
Yeah.
Since you brought up baseball, can I share something with you?
Please.
I'm not. It's a little plug, and I don't know if this gentleman's out there, but there's a guy that wrote a book, and I'm going to talk about this on my own sometime during this week. But it's a book called Umpire Mentors, and all these things that you guys are talking about is pretty much in this book. Kent Walker's the gentleman that wrote it. He's a former Major League Baseball umpire, Al Clark. There's a whole bunch of guys that throw in their 2 cents on here. And one of my favorite umpires is in here, and it's amazing how they critique themselves.
Sure.
The great ones. And that's why I ask you that one question about what's the difference between a great person or, and just the way they handle things it's incredible. And they're always what you were talking about, learning. They go to camps, they feed off of one another. I would just could only imagine what it would be like, but Kent wrote it's like 394 pages.
This subject the last time, so I'm going to request if I can come back again. First of all, I think we all have a good time, right?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I always enjoy you guys, but I was privileged to be able to work with Ken Kaiser, the baseball umpire out of American League umpire. Not Earl Weaver's best friend, if you remember.
No, he was not.
Right,
he was not.
But he was. He had his own radio show. Or like a podcast on an AM station that I was the sales manager for in Rochester, New York, which is where he's from. I had the joy of sharing a cab ride with Ken Kaiser. But when Ken was in the cab, it was all about him. And again, may he rest in peace. But Bill Haller was also in the cab.
Oh, my.
And one of the nicest, most polite human beings, never mind umpire. Human beings that I've ever met. and we shared a cab ride from Yankee Stadium all the way down into Midtown Manhattan on Saturday afternoon. And just, I mean, talk about night and day. And
Right.
now, if Earl Weaver were still around today, I'm not, so I'd like to see what he would have thought about that book you have in your hand. Because he was,
I personally think that umpires are probably some of the nicest people out there, and maybe most misunderstood. My favorite is Ted Barrett. He's a Christian.
right.
First of all, he professes that, and he has programs about rules. Ask the umpire, and
Right.
he's really good. He's a great teacher, but they all are in their own way. All these guys that are in this book, and I just like watching people like that, how they conduct themselves when they get thrown to the fire, and that's when I'm like, you know what, I really appreciate them even more now, because the whole stadium's against them or whatever.
Right. I think you have to tune, and I know we're going over on time, but you have to tune that. I think you just, if you're so focused, you have to tune that out.
Right.
Is that, I mean, you've been in the front lines.
Yeah, they do tend to yell behind the backstop too. Yeah.
Okay.
They call you names, and they talk about your mom, and when you're off the field, or you know what, and depends on the level of ball. It's not always pleasant what you hear.
Yes. So I guess it comes with the territory.
Oh,
you
yeah.
knew what you were getting in. I know you did. So
you always look out for your team and your partner.
What was the name of that book again? I'm going to.
It's called, and I'll send you. It's on Amazon. It's here. I'll hold it up.
Sure.
It's Umpire
Mentors,
and it's Kent Walker. And what it talks about is advice, tips, and stories from 100 of the best baseball umpire mentors in the world. So this is his version of this, and he asks 9 questions. Imagine that, he asked 9 questions because there's 9 innings. But and it's neat to see how they all answer these questions.
Right.
And it's really cool. And Ken, I did share this out to him. I don't know if he's listening. He's probably like, "What?
Why don't you get him on here?"
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we want to do, so he can promote this.
Bring it on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Play ball.
Now call in or whatever.
Oh yeah. Oh God. You'll probably try and heckle him or something.
No. I'll have a question to ask. And
right. But no,
whenever I do one of these, I try to make a contribution to the program, and I hope that
sure.
felt that I did that this evening.
But I would love to have him come on here and talk about, his experiences in his book, and what he's doing today. And he's the type of guy that's giving back. I mean, this is like 394 pages, man. It's some detailed stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and it just came out. You can catch it on Amazon.
I will.
It's out there.
I will. Another thing I try to do talks about goals and discipline. I try to read at least 10 pages a day of something. And on my Kindle, I have the spacing of the print as close together can contract it as much as I can. So I don't know reality how many, and I don't care. But I just feel if I'm going to do this for 15, 20 minutes a day, I want to get something out of whatever the lesson is to be learned from these books. I never used to read. And we talk about billionaires and millionaires. It's right there.
And what Tom teaches and what you're talking about, I'm just going to share this. This is my guy. I love him. Major league umpire, number 65. But he goes, Ted Barrett, if I'm consistently missing pitches in the same spot, now I know I have to make an adjustment. He's critiquing himself. I'll give you one from early on. Left-handed batters.
Right.
I've had a tendency to call a strike too far outside the corner. I can relate to that.
Right.
And I position myself better to get a better look at the corner.
Right.
And he said, even now I'll go back and look. Now here's a guy in the majors. And is my head too low? Am I blocked out? These are all things you got to ask yourself. Am I in the right slot? lots of things I look at it with my stance. So these guys are getting videoed and they're looking at themselves. You know, they are during games.
Right.
They
Well,
get
sort of
the
like a
replay.
ball player's trying to adjust his swing,
Right.
right? When the
Right.
league figures him out,
Right.
right?
And so an umpire's got to constantly adjust to each batter so you're fair to them, up at the plate, because everybody has a different, stance, their approach, and then you got to be cognizant of that. And it's hard, because you can't be the same for every hitter. You got to adjust to them too.
You
So,
come home after a night of umpiring 3, 4, 5, 6 games, mentally exhausted because you are constantly trying to.
yeah, you
You have to
do.
be making constantly mental adjustments.
Right, because I'm thinking of every time I make a call, I'm saying, was that a ball or a strike? I mean,
Right.
my little voice,
Right.
was that really a ball or strike?
And not only that, but the bang bang plays and
Oh yeah.
and something unusual happens, like what I asked you about the infield fly rule.
Infield fly.
I know I've asked you a few other questions. I just
Sure.
can't think of them now. But you have to be you're on and on
Yeah.
for 7 innings or 9 innings, whatever they play.
Right. Well, high school 7, and then you get into college and minors, majors.
I
9
just
innings.
hope it pays well. That's all.
Yeah. Well, it does. I mean, but then when you get into the realm of youth baseball or travel ball when they're teenagers,
Right.
It's the parents you have to deal with. The kids are pretty cool, but it's the moms and dads that envision their son and or daughter going into the major leagues.
I would put up with that.
Yeah. But and the coaches are pretty good
I've
too.
been thrilled. I hope you ask me back. I love it.
Will.
I love it. I don't know if I'm in sync with the topic of this program usually, or if we broke the format to pieces tonight.
And Ken, I apologize if you were listening. We really do. Kent Walker, I will be talking to you, and I really would love to have him on here. I can just tell he's a neat guy. I haven't even really talked to him like in this setting, but we've communicated,
Mark, and I'll just say this, we're talking about transition and real estate.
Right.
We talk about different things.
Yep.
We talked about baseball and the differentiation between just the average or getting by to the high performers.
Right.
But I book it in that book. You could read that and apply it to life.
Yeah.
Principles.
Business.
Without even reading it, looking at it, I know you can do that.
Absolutely. There's a common thread for success.
Yeah.
In everything in life.
Everything. You just have to look for it, which means you have to pick it up. You have to take action. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves is people that don't take action and take advantage of all the opportunity that's out there. Yeah. My biggest pet peeve in life.
You got it. And I would agree with you. Well, Tom, we're going to put you in the blue room or the green room, whatever. That's a blue room. You've got a blue room there. And
can I get a link at this maybe the next few days?
Oh, I'll shoot. Yeah, I'll shoot it.
Download it. Yeah.
I had a customer.
I'll message it to you on Messenger on your Facebook.
Okay. All right, that's fine. I hope that we do this again because I had a blast.
As well.
Okay.
So hang tight for a minute. Mark and I are going to wrap up.
You go ahead.
All righty, sir.
Thank you, guys. Good night.
Good night.
Take care.
Energy. That's what I love. Here we are. Talking about people talking about retirement. I have no intention. My energy is way too high to do that. Tom has that energy. He got me flying high.
I know, man.
I think
he's like hyped up. I wish I could be that way on the ball field, but you can't. You got to stay cool, calm, and collected out there. I think Tom, man, he'd make a great umpire. He'd get animated. I could see him having a conversation. What do you mean that wasn't a good call?
Yeah. So, there were some great points that Tom brought out.
Absolutely.
And, there's a person who's made transitions several times in his life. He's passionate about what he does. He wants to serve. One thing he said, he kept coming up. He wants to serve.
Right. He doesn't
people.
want to retire from life. It's okay to do something different or slow down, but I just can't see going to a restaurant every morning and having a cup of coffee. And if that's what I got to look forward to, I'm not making fun of it. There are some people I know that do that, and that's cool if that's what you want to do. But, we're all different, and that's the cool thing about it. Some people get into exercise. They take that up as a hobby. Some people, get into building their own business, a new opportunity, whatever it is,
Yeah.
there's a lot of things people do.
Yeah. Well, Mark, I think we're going to take some advice here that from Ben Gay gave to us. Talk a little bit more about our corporate sponsor just for a moment. I'm just going to bring this up, and I'll let you ask a question if you like.
Oh my, that looks familiar.
What's in this blue bottle?
I actually used that yesterday, by the way, and I've been using it while I've been out on the field, you know, as well as the gel. So,
Yeah, for those that are out there wondering what Mark and I are doing, we have collaborated together. We're working with a biotech company that has probably done something that no one said could ever be done, is being able to stabilize redox molecules outside the body. That
right.
is the essence of our life. You want to learn more, we can go to one of these sites here that we got here to learn more about it, or contact Mark or I. But seriously, we're talking about sports. Olympic athletes are using this product and breaking world records with it.
Yep.
And for anybody that wants better endurance, recovery, just on the performance and healthcare side of that, take a look at it. Right? Go ahead, Mark. Share with you your.
Well, this is something I use. I've been using now, like l- back of my thighs, lower back, after about, 3 plates, and then you got to go stand out in the field. As you know, standing's not good. So I always kind of keep moving a little bit. I don't just stay in a sedentary position where I'm just locked. You got to move a little bit out there. But, when you're on your feet all day, it'll catch up to you. I don't care who you are. So, this is a nice little product here, the Renew 28, which, I'm not hyping it. It works. You don't have to believe me. But I will tell you, if you got a pain somewhere and you put this on, you'll forget about it. And, it's really
It
kind of
does
cool.
more than just relieve the pain. So
Right.
yeah. So
And that's all I'm going to say about it. I'm not a doctor, but all I know is when something works, it works. And it's really kind of cool what it can do. And
yeah.
hey, I was a skeptic, till I checked this stuff out and tried it. And, even having, a sea of cocktails in the morning, afternoon, and evening. And, yesterday did the same thing on the ball field,
Yeah.
So.
Well, Mark, let's wrap it with that. And we are good for this evening. And
Absolutely.
we'll be talking real soon. And have a great evening, my friend.
You got it. You got it. Thanks for being here, everybody. Appreciate you
Yes.
joining in. Love
Yeah.
the comments.
Randy, everybody
Robert,
that came
Randy, Ted, Robert's always full of comments, man.
You got it. Here we go. We are closing out. If I can find it.